Thanks so much for the invitation to be part of your Possibility Lab today. Um, as Sally mentioned, I'm a landscape architect and I'm an academic and a practitioner. And I've always worked in sort of urban renewal and city revitalization, public space, that kind of thing. But I just happened to be in Louisiana in 2005. So I was there for Hurricane Katrina and for its endless aftermath as well. And so that's how I got interested in and involved in this kind of work. And so, um, a number of the experiences that I had there have very much sort of informed where we are today. And the living lab that I'm now involved with is a sort of a second go round at a laboratory that we had set up in Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. So, this is a whole area of work that has kind of taken over my career, um, simply for being in the is it the right place at the wrong time? I'm not sure what it was. And so I spent almost 20 years in the US and came back to Australia in 2016 for a position at University of Technology in Sydney. But immediately after the first major flood in 2022, I was invited to come to the Northern Rivers because I had an old friend at Southern Cross University who was aware of the work I had done in the US. And so to talk to the university about what on earth to do, what the role of the university was, what the issues are, what the opportunities might be. And it was out of that conversation that the Living Lab came about. And I'm just going to share my screen with you. So you can see these slides. So it was very much born out of my powerful desire to bring my experience and that of my colleagues to bear on this problem, given that, I felt like we had so much experience and we had learnt so much from working particularly in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, but also in other parts of America that had suffered similar kinds of devastation. And so what this lab is about is very much about a different way of working in this space. So the lab is a joint venture between the regional university, Southern Cross, and my university at UTS. And the idea is that you have to place communities at the center of this kind of work. And that, one of the starting points is the value of lived experience and the value of local knowledge. And together with you have to bring to the communities the very, very best technical expertise of every possible description, and we have a network of practitioners and academics from all over the world. We also learned that communication is incredibly important. And we put a lot of time and energy into visual communication and other kinds of inclusive methods, because this is a space that people do not understand well. A lot of what we are doing is thinking about the future, visualizing the future, creating different future scenarios, and people don't know how to think about that. So the more we can make that real for people and communicate in a way that everybody can understand, the better. And then it was also part of my desire to move out of a traditional university environment or out of a traditional consulting environment to find ways to work faster. So really to using techniques about piloting and testing things quickly in order to be able to get more answers and move on. And so the way the lab works is by bringing the broadest coalitions of stakeholders together, government, private sector, community-based organizations, non-profit organizations, and using a very, very broad range of methods, using traditional academic research, using creative practice, using interactive methods like workshops and exhibitions to really try to achieve better outcomes in these recovery and rebuilding scenarios, to build more capacity in communities so they can be better advocates for themselves, bringing more evidence and data to these questions and trying to provide better advice to government. And so this is where we are now. Collaboration between UTS and Southern Cross. Our foundational funding partner was the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. And you can see there, this isn't, this diagram was done a while ago. It would have more names on it now, but you can see a real diversity of engagement in this bigger network of collaborators. So one of the most important things about the lab is that it's not inside the university. It is not part of government. It is a third space that sits outside these organizations so that it is neutral. We do not have particular interests. We have no commercial interests in any of the outcomes. And so we can be a neutral place where people from everywhere can come together for conversations. And we have worked very hard to establish ourselves as a trusted partner and, and as trusted experts in this space. And we invite people, we have a shop front in Lismore as the worst affected place in 2022, but we work across the region, and we bring people into the lab for, as you saw, for exhibitions, for other kinds of events, for workshops, and we're open to the public every week, as well as inviting people in for a very, very broad range of different kinds of events. And most of those events are, related to the projects that we are doing and the work that we are engaging in and the issues that we are focused on. And you can just see here a whole range of different public programs that we have run related to the river, related to housing. Yeah. And then sometimes all those public programs can also include things like, in this instance, technical support for people involved in one of the Reconstruction Authority's programs to do with house raising. So we're trying to provide people with better information. So if they were granted money to raise their houses, so that they can get better outcomes out of that than they might otherwise. Quite a lot of our work initially has been focused on questions of housing, unsurprisingly. These are some images from a major exhibition that we held, which is part of our work in capacity building for the region, introducing people to where the housing crisis has come from, what the picture of housing is in the Northern Rivers, what are case studies for successful forms of housing from other parts of Australia, and speculation about things that might happen in the Northern Rivers. So a broad range of materials there. We've also hosted a big forum bringing people together across the region, from government, from the private sector, I guess born out of our frustration with the lack of action in this space. We put this together in collaboration with Business New South Wales, out of which we developed a series of 6 pilot projects, which we've been trying to get off the ground ever since, without a lot of success, I would have to say, in this instance. In the housing space is very much about business as usual. And as we know, business as usual is not going to be the answer to our current housing crisis. We also do traditional academic research. This was a report looking at what happened to people after the disaster. This is a really interesting piece of work. You can find it on our website. And it has made a whole series of really straightforward, common sense recommendations about how to do a better job next disaster. And I would have to say, some of these recommendations have already been adopted by the Reconstruction Authority in their most recent flood disasters on the mid-north coast a couple of months ago. We also work through creative practice. So this is another one of our reports, looking at how to do a better job of making housing more resilient in this region, on the assumption that there would be a lot of new housing being built in this area. So we used a series of design studios at the university to look at ideas for the programs that the Reconstruction Authority was rolling out. People being funded to retrofit their houses to make them more flood-proof, as I said before, funded to raise their houses, and also looking at housing types better suited to the region than the standard McMansions that are rolled out on Greenfield site here. So housing types that could be more flexible to families and individuals over time, looking at different kinds of housing forms that are suitable to the landscape and to the climate, and also just looking at housing forms that are not commonly developed in the area. And again, coming up with a whole series of guidelines and recommendations for that sort of housing going forward. I guess 2 years after the floods, we were, again, this is a project not funded by the Reconstruction Authority, funded out of our own, out of our university funding, born out of our frustration by the fact that no one had developed a plan for the future of Lismore. And I would have to say, 3.5 years on, there still is no plan for Lismore other than this one, which we developed in a really robust co-design process with the community, coming out of stakeholder meetings to a series of big community workshops, then working with an expert group of people to develop a plan, and then taking that back to more stakeholders for stress testing, and then back to the community. So, we do our best work in the local bowling clubs. I'm sure you're familiar with the sort of things that you might do at these kinds of community workshops. We found tremendous synergy in terms of the issues that people were interested in. We assembled a collection of Australia's best experts in architecture, urban design, planning, engineering, property, finance, people who were expert in the region. We did a big 3-day workshop We sent them away for a month while we developed all of that work. We brought them back again for another 3-day workshop. And out of all of this, I thought we were going to end up with a series of different scenarios, but we ended up with a simple plan made up of 5 ideas for Lismore. And this is very focused on things that could be done tomorrow, things that were urgent, but really 5 simple ideas about ways to help Lismore to move on while everybody waits to see if there's going to be any effective flood mitigation. Because we had figured out that even if that happens, even if somebody does find $2 billion, that's 20 years away. So how do people get on with their lives and make decisions now? So we wanted to create a vision for the CBD, moving the housing off the floodplain, make a virtue out of the CBD's low value, and create really simple planning pathways for people who are trying to start businesses, create a lot of support for new businesses, build on what exists in the region, health, food, agriculture, arts and culture, and find a way to create a really vibrant downtown that is flood-proofed. So while we know it's going to continue to flood, find a way to shorten the time of disruption so that it can remain viable. We also looked at drainage improvements, daylighting of streams, and using that to create an active transport network to connect the downtown with new housing areas, and also what to do with the vacant land that's coming out of the New South Wales government's massive buyback programs. And we had a lot of experience in that work from our work in New Orleans and subsequently in Detroit. And then all of this work then went back to the community for commentary, and it actually received incredibly strong support right across the community, from the business community to existing community organizations, farmers, tree huggers, everybody. And ever since then, we have been trying to have this work adopted by the state and or local government, but that has proved to be very challenging. We've also done work in the circular economy. This is a project, again, using our academic expertise in construction and in materials use to create a system to deconstruct the beautiful big scrub timber houses rather than demolishing them and pulping all of this recycled material. And so this involved a series of our academic researchers from construction and product design about how to set up this kind of deconstruction. We deconstructed 2 houses. We salvaged all of this incredibly valuable timber out of it. But we also created an exhibition for the community by working with 24 local makers to give them access to this really beautiful and valuable timber. And they made a really broad range of things from it, from these tools that you see here to outdoor and indoor furniture, to a garden shed, to lights, to little tiny spoons and hooks, all kinds of fabulous stuff, as a way of showing people more of the potential of these kinds of materials. And then most recently, this project, Living Memory, the exhibition has just come down. This is for one of the neighbourhoods where all of the residential development has been bought back. The oldest community in Lismore. So a real moment of transition. And this was a project kind of to celebrate that community and to create a an archive and a digital memorial to it, but also for the people to sort of celebrate this moment. This is on exhibition at the moment, and we had pop-up studios in the street where anyone from the community who wanted a portrait could come and be photographed. And we also have created this is in the center there is the local historian Adele Wessel. Has created these amazing oral histories and collections of memorabilia from people in the community as a part of this project. So that's the operation in a nutshell. And I'm just trying to show you this breadth of work. Most of the work is around these themes of housing, of planning and design for the future. And also, we also have quite a lot of work in the kind of land management and catchments space, which is much more to do with blue and green infrastructure. So those are the main areas of concentration, but you can also see this incredible diversity of methods. And having this shop front in downtown Lismore, giving the activity and the work this visibility, and just being there and being open to the public has also been incredibly important in building trust with the community. I don't know how closely you've followed the press on the Reconstruction Authority's activities in the Northern Rivers, but there clearly have been a range of issues, particularly to do with issues around housing and the provision of housing. And so I think our role as a trusted community partner has incredible strategic value in these conversations, which I have to say I would love to see government at all levels take more advantage of in a more strategic way. So I'm just going to I'll leave it there. I'm sure we'll have more conversation and questions.